ahead of the 2025 Shanghai Cooperation Organisation Summit, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev, Belarusian President Alexander, and Maldivian President Mohammad Mizu have already arrived in the host city. Today, Myanmar's junta leader Min Aung Hlaing met with Chinese President Xi Jinping, joining previous discussions with Nepal's KP Sharma Oli and Kazakhstan's Kassym-Jomart Tokayev. Nepal's Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli expressed gratitude for the bilateral talks, noting their productive discussions and reaffirming Nepal's commitment to strengthening ties with China. The summit will officially kick off on the 31st of August and run through the 1st of September. The leaders of the summit will be addressing major issues such as regional security, digital cooperation, and new topics like artificial intelligence and cyber defense. But what does this summit truly signify? Take that conversation forward. I have with me Mr. Andrew K.P. Leung, who's an expert on China, joining us on the broadcast. Mr. Leung, I want to understand from your perspective. You join us from London. Firstly, if you can tell us how exactly is the UK now watching the events unfold in the other part of the world?
Sorry, are you asking me?
Yes, Mr. Leung.
Yes, well, I can't speak for the UK, but what I know is, of course, this is a pivotal moment, not only for China and India or members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, but for the world as a whole, because the whole world order, which was founded and led by the United States since the end of the Second World War, has now been totally upended by President Trump 2.0, pivoting towards American first hegemony and also using coercive tactics, bullying countries, not only China as an existential threat to American dominance, but also Americans' traditional allies.
All right.
But also countries, partners like India and countries around the world. So I think that this is not a coalition, because no country wants to make an enemy of the United States, but to recalibrate relationship with the world's most powerful country, both in military terms and economy, but regarded as an increasingly unpredictable and less reliable partner, and also recalibrating relationship with each other despite the differences.
Mr. Leung, I also want to understand from you, in your perspective, has the tariff war by the United States of America somewhere inadvertently pushed the U.S. adversaries and some of its allies closer together?
Sorry, you're asking me, or?
Yes, Mr. Leung.
Okay, right. Well, I don't think that that's in this kind of calculation, because if you look at what happened with countries like Russia and Iran, the doyen of American foreign policy, the former doyen, he was the mentor of Henry Kissinger, Brzezinski. In his seminal book in 1997, the Grand Chessboard, on page 55, he did warn that the greatest existential threat to American dominance would be if the countries of Iran and Russia and China are grouping together. And this is what is happening now, despite his forewarning about decades ago. But this is not forming a solid bloc, because there are many differences between Russia and China, and even between Iran and China. But they are pushed closer together, not so much pulled together, although of course there is a pull element there, but they are largely pushed together. And that you can include India as well now. But as I said, it's not forming a bloc, it's recalibrating relationship with each other.
All right, Mr. Leung, stay on with me as more news comes in from the SCO. At the summit, United Nations has said that China's support for multilateralism is vital. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has emphasized that amid growing global tensions, especially from US trade policies, China's support for the United Nations remains vital for global stability. She, in return, has reassured the UN chief of China's continued commitment to being a reliable partner and to strengthen the UN's central role in international affairs. Both of them acknowledged the importance of collaboration to maintain peace and prosperity. Listen in.
8 years ago, led to the approval of the United Nations and the approval of the... And we are extremely appreciative and grateful for that.
Joining me on the broadcast is Mr. Raymond Vickery, former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce. Mr. Vickery, thank you so much for joining us on NewsX World. I have to begin by asking, what do you make of certain comments that have been made at the SCO summit as far as China's role in the UN is concerned? This is, of course, also keeping in mind the larger context of America under Donald Trump questioning the role of the UN and other such agencies.
I believe that this SCO summit is important, but is not dispositive of the needs of India in regard to its relationship with other nations. There's no question that what President Donald Trump had done has pushed India away from the United States and closer to other countries, whether they be authoritarian or democracy, authoritarian like China or Russia. But it should be remembered that Prime Minister Modi is coming from Japan to China. Japan, a vibrant democracy, which has much more in common with India than does China. I would hope that the principles of the United Nations, which are in the UN Charter, would be a bedrock for policy of India as well as China and the rest of the world. Those include principles against the invasion, aggression, imperialism, which has been displayed by Russia, and are contrary to what China has often claimed in terms of its ability in the South China Sea to take over an entire state of India or a natural product.
Okay. Mr. Vickery, I do want to understand from you, sir, quickly on the aspect of China and the UN and certain statements that have been made by the UN Secretary General as well, asking for China to play a more vital role as far as the United Nations is concerned. In your assessment, what would a greater role by China, say, in the UN really entail? Because this is in the larger context of, say, the United States of America, somewhere under Donald Trump, questioning the need for a United Nations.
Well, there's no question that China should play a greater and more positive role. It has great leverage with Russia. Russia, under Putin, has provided the greatest transgression of the principles of the United Nations since World War II. China, like India, should provide greater leadership in regard to getting back to those principles. What has happened, of course, under Donald Trump is that he's basically abdicated the role of leader of the free world. What he's done is turn everything about him, about aggrandizement personally, to try to move away from relationships, which we've been building with India, particularly for over 30 years, and move to a transactional real estate kind of approach. It's not a question of medium or long term. It's what are you going to do for Donald Trump right now? And we in the United States are facing that problem just as India and the rest of the world are. You may know that yesterday a court of appeals declared the tariffs to be illegal that Donald Trump is imposing. This will now go to the Supreme Court. So these problems which are created by this shift from the principles which have largely kept the peace since the end of World War II is very, very disturbing for all the nations of the world. And I think it's perfectly appropriate for the Secretary General of the United Nations to say that China should play a positive role. You think particularly its relationship with Russia. If China and India would stop buying Russian oil, Putin and Russia would fall tomorrow. There's no question about that. So yes, we need to be able to work together. The United Nations provides a framework and a system of values for doing that. And one would hope that people would move away from the reversion which Donald Trump has shown to 19th century thinking about imperialism and great powers being able to divide up the world, and move back to what has kept peace and built prosperity throughout the world since World War II.
All right. On that note, I want to bring back Mr. Andrew Leung into the conversation as well. Mr. Leung, your thoughts on the same, on what Mr. Raymond Vickery has also just pointed out, that somewhere, in a way, America under Donald Trump has abdicated its role as leader of the free world. Is there somewhere a worry that in the vacuum that's being created, China could potentially take over?
Well, China is the largest contributor to the United Nations peacekeeping force amongst the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. And of course, China has never renegated or deferred its contributions to the finances of the United Nations, unlike other countries, including the United States. But I think that as far as China is concerned, it's not out to conquer territories. It's defending its sovereignty, even though some of the sovereignty claims are challenged by other countries. So I think that in a world where it's totally upended and disorderly, where the supply chains are disrupted, it's high time, and also while humanitarian disasters are happening across the world, and Iraq over Gaza, and also in Africa, it's the absence of the role of the United Nations is ringing very loud. So I think that the call for the United Nations to play an important role, and for China, along with the Global South, and trying to steer the world along with the United Nations on the basis of the United Nations Charter towards a more rule-based order, which has of course benefited China hugely since its foundation by the United States after the Second World War, and this is what's all about.
Right, absolutely. I'm going to request all our guests to stay on with us because there's some more updates coming in. Russian President Vladimir Putin will be meeting Chinese President Xi Jinping